Hello, and welcome to the Jim Show with your host, Jim. What I want to talk about today is my top 5 personal development books and my top 5 science fiction books. Let's start with personal development. Number 5, The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John David Mann. This is a short book, but it really gives you a great overview of how you can go about providing value to other people and why it's so important, and how it can change your whole life if you use that approach of being a go-giver instead of a go-getter. And being a go-getter is okay. What you really want to do is be a go-giver. So check it out. Number 4, The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. I've talked about this a lot. I just read it a couple weeks ago, totally changed my life. So we know about the 5-second rule itself. I posted the interview where Mel talks about that. But in the book, she talks about all kinds of other tweaks and modifications you can make to your life, to certain habits, and a whole variety of things. I think it's really valuable. Great book. Definitely a life-changing read. Number 3, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. So The Power of Habit is also revolutionary in that it is taken a very scientific approach to how habits work and how we can find those loops in our lives, a habit loop. Find the cue, find the reward, and actually change those habits, rewrite them, overwrite them with a new habit, a positive habit. And it goes into exquisite detail about how that works and how you too can totally change your life if you just take a look at the habits that you have. Number 2 is Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. This book definitely changed my life. It basically talks about how we can see other people as objects and therefore we don't treat them like actual people. So it's really all about interpersonal relationships and how we basically lie to ourselves, right? The self-deception part. We are self-deceived. We carry these images of ourselves around throughout our lives, and we get really defensive when they're challenged. And we all do this all the time. And the book just really opens your eyes to probably what you've been doing and what I was doing my whole life, and it really caused a lot of problems. So it definitely was a life-changing read. And number 1 is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. The reason this is number 1 is because it covers such a wide breadth of different parts of personal development. Basically, it covers everything to some degree. It touches on, the internal battle that you have to fight. I think he calls it the personal victory. And then there's, the external, dealing with other people part of it. And then so there's 3 that are internal, 3 that are external, and then the last one is sharpening the saw, which is continually improving on all of those. So it covers everything. I was very resistant to reading this book. And then when I finally did, I realized that I was not an effective person at all. So again, it's a great read. All these books are really, really valuable. They've changed my life. Highly recommend them. Now, the fun part, science fiction. The reason science fiction is so interesting to me is because I feel like it lets me view the future, because it's only a matter of time before science fiction becomes science fact. So I do think it's valuable. I also really just enjoy it because I'm kind of a nerd. So number 5 is We Are Legion, We Are Bob by Dennis E. Taylor. This is a pretty new book. I kind of like the idea of going to sleep and waking up like way in the future when things are totally different. I don't actually want to spoil this book for anyone that's interested in reading it. So I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot more, except that it's really, really cool. If you're into being able to design a world yourself, I think you'd really like it. It's really interesting. Check it out. Number 4, The Foundation Trilogy by Isaac Asimov. This is, a classic, one of the classics. I think it's really interesting because he basically takes the approach of this is what I would do if I could see the future of humanity. Or if I could see that there was a calamity, this is how I would reshape things, redesign the way things are going if I could start, fresh on the outskirts of a collapsing empire. this is what I would do. It's a really interesting book. I really enjoyed it. He goes into this concept that people are psychic, really deep into that concept, actually, into the concept of oneness, of Gaia. It's just, there's a lot of interesting things that happen in that series. There's actually a lot more than 3 books, and they're all really good. Definitely worth it. Number 3, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert A. Heinlein. Another classic. What I really like about this book is both the concept of intelligent AI, like helping people to free themselves from, authoritarian rule, and this concept of, he brings up this concept of a line marriage, which is basically the idea that because living on the moon was so dangerous and people would die, they would form a marriage that went through time. So 2 people would initially marry, and then they would have other people marry into that group. So it's not really polygamy, because it's adding men and women, and their various ages. So it basically, that the marriage progresses through time. It never ends, right? It just goes on forever and ever and ever. The oldest people, die, and new people join the marriage, and that way they have a family, because people die often, and children would always have, a bunch of parents to continue supporting them. So it's, a totally different concept than what we see in Western society, or really anywhere on Earth at the moment. So I think it's really very interesting. Number 2, Heinlein again with Stranger in a Strange Land. This book totally saved me. When I was in a really dark place, I found this book, and it just blew my mind. So this guy comes to Earth. He was raised by Martians on Mars, so he doesn't have any of the indoctrination, any of the limitations, any of the paradigm that is put on all of us all the time. And I truly believe that the things he's able to do in the books, all kinds of stuff that, we hear about monks being able to do things like this. We hear about people that spend a lot of time doing, like, control your body temperature, really reduce your heart rate, all kinds of stuff, and even more than that, into the psychic stuff like some of the other books talk about. I think that those are real capabilities that humans have, but there's all kinds of barriers, in our life to doing that, and that we're really limited by what we're told we can do and what we think that we can do, as opposed to what it would be like if we were never told we had all these limitations. So I think that's a really interesting part of the book. He also talks about this concept of groking something, which is fully understanding it. And basically the idea is that sometimes it just takes time to fully grow whatever it is, and that's fine. Waiting is the phrase that comes up a lot. Like, you just have to wait and let it reach fullness, and that's what I had to do in that period. I had to learn patience, which was very hard for me. Just let things progress as they should. You are where you are, and that's fine, and you'll get to where you need to be when you get there. And that brings us to number 1, which is Daemon and Freedom, a series by Daniel Suarez. This is also relatively new. I really like it because it's something that could happen tomorrow. It could happen at any time. It's not that far into the future. And it's basically a blueprint for how we could recreate the world in such a better way. Just a completely different and better way. And to me, that is really exciting, because I feel like a lot of what happens in that book are things we could do now. Like, create completely, self-sufficient areas within a 100-mile radius. Like, it's amazing. And we could use technology just to totally change the world and the way things work. So I really love that book. There's some twists in it, or both the 2 books. There's some twists. Yeah. Just, you got to check it out. They're really, really good. Highly recommend all the books on both lists. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time.